everyone, welcome back to BISambition. I'm Amukta.
And I'm Mala.
And we'll be your hosts.
And today's episode is about the extended essay, which is an essential part of the IB diploma. And
we've got two Year 13s joining us today. We've got Abdullah and Asad. So could you guys please introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Abdullah Hashimi. I take psychology, computer science, and theatre at NHL. And I want to study computer science in university, hopefully in Canada.
I'm Asad Al-Barwani. I take computer science, maths, and business HL, and I'm planning on studying computer science at NYU.
All right, so could you guys start by just telling us what your EE was on and what subject it was in?
So I did an EE on English, and I did an analysis of the graphic novel Attack on Titan and the book by George Orwell, Animal Farm.
I did my EE in computer science. I did a comparison between two cryptographic algorithms. So it was basically an encryption, like a cryptography essay.
And how did you guys come to pick these topics and subjects that you've done your EEs on?
So for me, I really wanted to do something that I enjoyed, because I think the most important part when writing this specific the EE, because it's so long, it's 4,000 words, you're going to be spending a lot of time on it. Make sure that you do it on something that I liked and I enjoyed this graphic novel, and so that's why I chose it.
I actually did an internship in year 10 at NYU Abu Dhabi, where I was researching cryptography, researching crypto systems, and I researched one of the crypto systems I was actually looking into in my extended essay. I kind of wanted to know more because I was looking at it at a very elementary level during the internship, because I was only in year 10. I couldn't really go that deep, or I just wouldn't understand it. So I wanted to take another look at it and go deeper and actually understand it better. And the essay was the perfect way of doing that for me.
All right. And Abdullah, you mentioned that you wanted to study computer science, but you did your EE in English. So could you explain more why you chose to do that?
Well, for me personally, I think it's really important to be really versatile and well-rounded in all of my subjects. So I have an art subject, I have a science subject, and a humanities subject. Yeah. And so I did English mainly because I really like English. I do enjoy analyzing works a lot, actually. And I think despite, taking computer science in university, I still think it's important to be analytical, to, read, and to just pursue your passions.
Yeah. All right, so obviously you guys had your supervisor meetings. So what did you guys discuss in those supervisor meetings?
You mean the initial one?
The initial one, and any other meetings that you had with your supervisor after.
So the initial meeting was kind of because normally when you start your EE, you're either too broad or you're too focused, and you either can't write enough or you can write way too much, and it's not feasible. Yeah. So the first meeting was presenting your initial ideas and then slimming it down. Most of the time, your ideas are going to be too broad because you have so much you want to write about. There's so much in a topic, or you just don't know how to pinpoint on one thing exactly. For example, for me, I initially chose I'm going to look into post-quantum cryptographic systems, which is basically I don't want to get too technical here, but it's it's encryption that prevents being cracked by quantum cryptography by quantum computers.
All right.
I don't know what that means.
Don't worry about it. That was too broad because there's so many post-quantum cryptographic encryption schemes, and looking at even just two of them, I'd have to justify why am I looking at this and this when I said I'm going to be looking at the entire thing. And instead of doing that, I had to narrow it down, and I narrowed it down to lattice-based cryptographic schemes, which is basically I'm trying to avoid being technical because it's just a grid of points in n-dimensional space, so 1,000 dimensions or whatever. Okay. You can't really imagine that, but in 1,000 dimensions, you put a needle in a haystack of 1,000 dimensions. You have to find that one point, and that's how you crack the code, and it's incredibly hard to do that. And that's basically what I was looking at. It's slimming it down, basically. Yeah. So that initial meeting will always be taking your big ideas, bringing them smaller. Or if you don't have many ideas, kind of trying to find one that's really good in your field. There's a lot to look at in most subjects. But there's always a more popular option, and it's popular for a reason. Yeah. For computer science in particular, most people look at encryption because it's so much easier to run an experiment. You just check how fast does it do this or how fast does it do that, and that's like an easy way of looking at it. But it might be different for other subjects.
Would you say that your, like, maybe initial question changed throughout, like, the whole time that you...
Up until the end for me, actually.
Yeah.
I submitted my first draft, and my question was different from the final draft. I didn't change much of the content, but my question was too broad. Even then, like, after submitting a first draft, I don't know, 10 months in? Was it 10 months?
It was a while, I don't know.
Yeah, after submitting my first draft, even after that, I still had to change my question to make it fit what I was writing about more. Because sometimes you write about things that aren't especially related, and you want to kind of bring it down.
And, like, when do you guys recommend, like, starting or, like, trying to research your EE question?
Immediately. as soon
as possible.
One of the things I regret the most is probably... Because if we're asking about when you should start the EE itself, do it, please, like, just get it out the way and just do it as soon as you possibly can. The research is really important because I think that as soon as you get the idea of what you want to do, the hardest part is literally just starting it. As soon as you start, it will continue, it'll go on, and you'll finish it before you even know it.
Yeah.
4,000 words is not a lot, actually, in retrospect.
When you have so much to write about,
Yeah.
you'll find it harder to not fill up the 4,000, but rather to fit it all in 4,000. So you want to start early, so then you have room to, like, change it, and it's more flexible and more malleable. If you wait until the end, you don't really have as much time.
And so by the end of year 12, like, how much of your EE would you say that you'd done by then?
I had 2,000 words, I think. But my 2,000 words were 2,000 words because it was... I feel like it's different for every subject. For computer science, a lot of it is background information and explaining things. And then the other, like, it's half explaining and background information, half your experiment, your conclusion. So I went up until before I did my experiment. The experiment was the hardest part for me. But I got all of the background stuff done before that point. It was a lot of explaining, though. I wish I did more experimentation.
I think at the end of mine, in the end of year 12, I had like 1,300 maybe. I didn't have much. And I actually had to rewrite most of that because my supervisor told me that I stayed off track during a lot of that part. And so I had to rewrite it basically during the summer.
And so obviously there's a lot more to the IB than just your EE, I wish, but how did you guys manage your EE alongside, exams and IAs and all of that?
A timetable, I think, is 100% the most effective thing you can do. Lay out some time. Think about how much you need to do in your EE, like in the coming week maybe, and then go on like a Google Calendar is what I use, but you can use literally anything. And just put blocks after school when you want to work on your EE, when you want to study, when you want to work on your IAs, and just depending on like more so the upcoming deadlines, so you should look a bit forward and I think plan based on that. I think that's extremely important.
I think it's important to understand that your EE is worth 1.5 points and your subjects are worth 7. Every single one of your subjects is worth 7, but your EE is only 1.5. So if you're putting so much priority on your EE and you're stressing out about your extended essay and you're like, how am I going to get this done? What's going to happen? You're not going to... You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just take your time. It's 1.5 points. It's not 7 points. You're not failing an entire subject.
Yeah.
As long as you submit something that's good enough to get at least 1 point, I would say you should be happy with that. Obviously aim for the best. Start early, get it done, submit good quality work. But if you feel like you're gonna fail the IB because of your extended essay, calm down. You won't. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And what research sources did you guys use?
So for me, because I did English, obviously my main source of research was just literally rereading the text over and over and over again and just reading it in an analytical view. I literally analyzed every single chapter of that graphic novel, just every page, thought, okay, is there an animal in this page? How can I use that as, is there any symbolic element of that?
Yeah.
And I just continuously did that. It might be a bit different for like the science subjects, but I think for English or, the literature ones, just read the actual material you're using.
I'd say, because I did something in science where it's really technical, it's a lot of maths, a lot of like understanding everything. it was a bit more difficult for me. Reading research papers, but you find research papers daunting, so you start with like Medium articles and the Wikipedia page. That's a bit more simple. It's a bit more dumbed down. So you start with that and you build up to the research papers, and then when you start reading the research papers, you have all the information that you need for computer science at least. I would say that if you're finding what you're reading too complicated, look for something simpler. There's always something simpler for science in particular. There's always a simpler person. Like there's always someone explaining it simple in a more simple way. Especially on Medium. Medium is like it's like you publish your own articles, and you find a lot of people publishing like articles explaining really complex things in a really simple way. And then from there you have that background knowledge, and you can build up to the research papers, which give you the knowledge you really need to include in your EE to score high points.
I agree. And for me personally, I'm doing biology, my EE on biology. And so there's like this website called like PubMed, which is good. It includes like a lot of research papers on that. So that could also be useful to anyone who's thinking about doing anything bio-related.
And obviously throughout the process and at the very end, you had to submit like your RPPF and all the reflections and the Viva Voce interview. So how would you recommend like keeping track of your reflections and reflecting throughout the entire thing?
Reflections, I would say write them when you're supposed to. Don't wait until the end, because when you're, for example, if you have to write all 3 reflections at the very end, you're not going to remember how you were back then. Like the first reflection is after you've decided on your topic, I think. And if you're writing that reflection at the very end, you won't even remember much about that. You want to write that the moment you finish doing that. You do it all at the time you're meant to write it, and it'll be a lot easier to write because it's still fresh on your mind. For the Viva Voce, it's really relaxed. You're just going through what you've done, what you could have done, what you could have added to this, what you want to look into further. It's a really relaxed conversation with your advisor. It's not it's not something to be stressed about. It's more like reflecting on what you've done and thinking, I really like doing this. I really enjoyed this. I didn't really like this that much. I could have done this better.
Extending on his the part about like the first reflection, I know it seems like a bother, like when you're in the beginning of IB and you have to do this alongside like writing 4,000 words. That seems crazy, but I promise you, they are not that long at all. Like they take maybe 45 minutes max to just put one out, and just do it, because then after that it'll leave your mind and you won't have to do it again. Yeah. Just get it out the way. Yeah.
And so just as like a general question, if you were to start your EE journey again from the very beginning, I know you guys already mentioned some of your regrets, but do you have any more regrets that you'd like to share?
Anything you do differently?
Other than do my experiment earlier, probably do my research and choose my research question. Like, I wouldn't say like choose it perfectly from the beginning. That's not realistic. But I would say, at the very least, don't overscope it. A lot of people overscope at the beginning. They think, oh, I'm going to look into, quantum mechanics, and I'm going to look into nuclear reactions, and my experiment's going to be using a quantum computer, and you're not going to do that. You have to think of, for science in particular, think of the experiment from the start. Don't think of all the stuff you can write about. Think about the experiment from the beginning, because the experiment is where most of the marks are for science EE in particular. So if you're going to do something in science, don't think of, I want to learn about this, I want to do this, I want to do that. Think, I want to do this. This is an experiment I could do. Let me look into that experiment. Because my experiment could have been a lot more expansive. It could have looked a lot deeper into what I needed to look into. But I had to make it simple because I was thinking more about the background information and less about the experiment itself. It should always be on your mind that the experiment's the most important part of the science EEs.
And for me, probably the biggest regret is that, and I will say this, it's extremely important. Please do your EE during the summer of your first year, please. To everybody who's listening. Because after year 12, the biggest difficulty coming into year 13 is university applications. It's the hardest thing, as well as, piling onto your IAs, piling onto your exams and doing that. Just get the EE out the way during the summer. You have a lot of free time. Just get it out the way, please.
I'll take that into my...
And so I think obviously we all know how difficult it is to write the EE, but at the end of the day, I think we can agree that, we're going to be writing essays throughout our life just like this, and like especially in university, it is really good that IB is giving us this practice.
Yeah.
And just to end off, do you guys have any general tips? Anything to do with the IB that you'd like to share?
The IB in general?
Yeah.
Schedule, please.
Yes.
Do a schedule.
Study schedule from the start. Don't neglect the end of year 12 exams, the mocks. Don't neglect those whatsoever, because those are going to be like your biggest tool during applying for universities. And if you're applying to the US in particular, you want to do stuff over the summer as well. A big thing with the US is doing activities. They call them extracurriculars. You want to do those over the summer. If you're going to be doing your EE over the summer, you want to have some sort of schedule so that you're able to not only do your extended essay, but also do some CAS, do some stuff for uni applications, prepare lists, and actually study for your finals as well. A lot of people neglect studying for any mocks or even the finals until the last minute, and that's a really bad thing to do. It's harmed a lot of people, and I know from personal experience, you don't want to wait till the last minute to start studying, or you're gonna be in a pickle.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Thank you guys so much for coming on to this episode.
And thank you for listening.
Yep. See you next time.